Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday morning service at the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, which most people around here just call BUF. Before we get into the heart of the service, I have some announcements to make. First of all, just look at the announcements in the order of service. There's a lot of important things here. I just want to highlight a few things. This Sunday, not this Sunday, 2 weeks from today, May 31st, is going to be a special day here at BUF. In the service, we're going to celebrate the ordination of our minister, Sonny McMillan, who's away today at the women's retreat. And after the service on the 31st, there's going to be a potluck downstairs. That'll be a lot of fun and a good chance to eat good food. And then, drum roll, please, we're going to have the congregational meeting, okay? And that really encourage people to come. It'll be here in the sanctuary after the potluck, May 31st. We have several important things that we're going to ask you to do a up or down vote on. And I'm a board member in addition to being a celebrant. And on behalf of the board, I really want to emphasize that it's important for as many of you to come as you can so we can have a quorum at the meeting. Specifically, we're going to ask you to vote on the proposed budget for 2026-27 and an updated mission statement, an expenditure for repairs to the roof, and a slate of 4 board members that we need you to approve. There's a list of member names posted in the narthex. And if you haven't been around a Unitarian church very much, the narthex is the room that's right outside the sanctuary there. I've only heard that word, narthex, used here at BUF. As a member, please look at that list where all the names of members are listed. Make sure your name's on that list. If your name is not on that list, talk to Allison, the BUF administrator. And also in the narthex today, there are detailed handouts for you to review prior to the meeting. There's information about each of those items that I mentioned. Okay. Also, I want to announce that there's going to be a Pathways for Newcomers class coming up. It's written up in your printed order of service. And Pathways is a chance for adults to get to know others in a small group setting and to learn about our church and UUism. It's kind of an orientation to BUF and to Unitarian Universalism. The session features a question and answer session with our minister, Sonny McMillan. And I just want to give a plug for it because I attended a Pathway session 3 years ago and it changed my life. So if you want details about that, you can talk to me about it at the coffee hour after the service today. And I also want to give a little information about the service next Sunday on the 24th. That's part of the Memorial Day weekend, and Marcia Volkomer is in charge of that service, and we will once again honor the memory of George Floyd after the service in Fouts Neighborhood Park, right over there. And Marcia is going to honor the memory of Jonathan Myrick Daniels, an Episcopalian seminarian and civil rights worker who was martyred in 1965 while shielding Ruby Sales in a racist attack. Remembering those whose lives were taken and thinking about how we, the living, can carry their legacy will be the focus of our morning at BUF next Sunday, March 24th. So please come to that service if you can. And there's one more announcement that I'm not going to make because Jeff Copeland is going to make it.
Thanks, Tom. I promised him I'd be less than 2 minutes, and I'm going to try and do that. I want to draw your attention to one of the announcements in the order of service. Folk singer, songwriter, labor activist Joe Jenks will be here doing his Pacific Northwest concert loop. He'll be here on the 28th of May, which is the Thursday. That's about 10 days from now in the evening. He'll be doing a concert here. I always have Joe's music in heavy rotation when things are weird and I need a little hope. And I think now is a perfect time for seeing Joe in person. See me for more details at coffee hour.
Thanks, Jeff. And now, Ian is going to usher us into our time of worship with the prelude, Shita's Decision, written by Joe Hisaishi.
Good morning. My name is Allie Wright, and I use she and her pronouns. And I am here to talk to you guys and introduce you to today's theme of perspectives on change. Both how we will continue to fight to change the world for the better and how we can support each other when we feel like the world is changing into the terrifying type of chaos. Reflecting on my own complicated relationship with change, I remember entering adolescence in the age of teen dystopia and a certain presidential election, only to then enter adulthood during a global pandemic, which left me and many others stranded, grieving, and subject to the forces of nature, which lifestyles such as mine usually allowed us to ignore. I remember waking up on a San Francisco morning during this time for another day of hiding from wildfire smoke and infection, only to see a sunless red sky, and for a moment I accepted that the world had ended. But a funny thing happened the next day. The sun came out. And in the next few years of my life completely changed in the opposite direction. I moved to a new town, I started college, and I've met many of the people that I now consider my best friends. Even with all the fear that I feel for certain changes in the past year or so, I remain the happiest I've ever been. Through all the limitations of the pandemic, there were a certain few people who were there to support me as well as they could, and I'm so lucky that their love was enough to carry me through and help me build the resilience to start again. And I grieve for those who had experiences bleaker than mine. I started noticing that change could feel so heavy, and at the same time, sometimes through all the pain and hard work, the pendulum swings back pretty close to where it was before, even if things will never be the same. I learned this through my own journey and the resilience of my community and the planet itself. I came to the conclusion that the world has already ended a few times, and some of the times were even before humans were around. Like in the Cretaceous era, when there was a mass extinction which famously killed the dinosaurs, but also 70% of all living species. And I also imagine that the little critters who survived it may have felt something like I did on the day when I woke up to a sunless sky. I'm also surprised to hear that humanity itself faced extinction hundreds of thousands of years ago, when Earth's human population was teetering around 1,000 people. As archaeologist Nick Ashton is quoted in Scientific American, this would imply that humanity occupied a very localized area with good social cohesion for it to survive. As Tom lights our chalice, I hope that in Dr. Ashton's statement, you can see the message I am hoping to leave you with today, that even when change is devastating and perhaps world-ending, the only way out is through, and the only way through is together. Thank you. And now, I would like, if you would all please, join me in reading our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
And now we're going to sing and dance together. So I really encourage you to get up and dance around with your friends, both children and adults. So the song is number 311 in your hymnal. The words should be up on the screen. It's our old favorite, Let It Be a Dance. Okay. Now we're going to do a responsive reading, which should be on the... There we go. There. Okay. So I read the first line, and then you read the second line, and we go back and forth like that. This is a poem by Muriel Rukeyser, who, if you're not familiar with her, she was a real strong force in the women's movement in the 60s and 70s, and just has a lot to say. Okay. Wherever we walk, we will make.
Wherever we protest, we will go planting.
Make poems, seed grass, feed a child growing, build a house.
Whatever we stand against, we will stand feeding and seeding.
Wherever I walk,
I will make.
great. And now Allie's going to do the children's story, which, appropriate enough, is called To Make.
All right, so now I'm going to invite all the children to come and sit with me. I think I got it. All right, hello everyone. So today we are reading a book called To Make. To make a cake. Gather. Make. And wait. To make a garden. Gather. Make. And wait. To make a song. Gather, make, wait. Keep making, keep waiting. To make a plan, gather, make, wait. To make a story, gather, wait, make, wait. Sorry, guys, I forgot the words. To make a friend, gather, make. Can anyone guess the next step? It's wait. Keep making, keep waiting. To make a poem, a painting, a sweater, a city, a dance, a fort, gather, make, wait. Sometimes you will make and make and make, and wait and wait and wait what feels like forever. But keep making, keep waiting, because one day you will share something wonderful that only you know how to make. Thank you. All right, and now we will sing our children off to their RE classes.
We hold you in our love as you grow, as you grow. We are free and peace as you go. To nurture the spark and the precious fire. We hold you
Good morning. Several weeks ago, Tom sort of mistakenly asked me if I would do a few minutes on change as it happens at Buff, because Tom thought, well, Michael's been part of this place for 42 or 43 years, and he must know something about change here. And I said to him, I don't want to talk about that because everybody here has their own perspective on change, and it's all probably brilliant insight. So I thought about what to say, and instead I'm going to have 5 people here. Patricia, Rod, Andy, and I want to say a special welcome to Andy, who just moved out from New Hampshire with Kate to be part of our new co-housing community, which will be next door. Amy and Gail. And we're going to do a little reader's theater from a piece from the prologue of John Lewis's autobiography, because it's so much better about change. So if the 5 of you could rise and talk pretty loudly. No, we've already worked this out. We've got this worked out. But good point. Okay, so Patricia, you get to start.
So, prologue, Walking with the Wind by John Lewis. I want to begin this book with a little story. It has nothing to do with a national stage or historic figures or monumental events. It's a simple story, a true story about a group of young children, a wood frame house, and a windstorm. The children were my cousins, Roy Lee, Ginny Boy, Naomi, Leslie, Muriel, about a dozen of them all told, along with my older sister Ora, and my brothers Edward and Adolph, and me, John Robert.
I was 4 years old at the time, too young to understand there was a war going on over in Europe and out in the Pacific as well. The grown-ups called it a world war, but I had no idea what that meant. The only world I knew was the one I stepped out into each morning, a place of thick pine forests and white cotton fields and red day roads winding around my family's house in our little corner of Pike County, Alabama.
We had just moved, and spring onto some land my father had bought. The first land anyone in his family had ever owned.
Andy, if you could read.
Higher. Okay. One more time. We had just moved that spring onto some land my father had bought. The first land anyone in his family had ever owned. 10 acres of cotton and corn and peanut fields, along with an old but sturdy 3-bedroom house, a large house for that part of the county, the biggest place for miles around. It had a well in the front yard and pecan trees out back, and muscadine grapevines growing wild in the woods all around us, our woods.
My father bought the property from a local white businessman who lived in the nearby town of Troy. The total payment was $300, cash. That was every penny my father had to his name. Money he had earned as a sharecropper, planting, raising, and picking the same crops that had been grown in that soil for hundreds of years by tribes like the Choctaws and the Chickasaws and the Creeks. Native Americans who were working this land long before the place was called Alabama, long before black or white men were anywhere to be seen in those parts.
Almost every neighbor we had in those woods was a sharecropper, and most of them were our relatives. Nearly every adult I know was an aunt or an uncle. Every child my first or second cousin. That included my Uncle Rabbit, my Aunt Cindy, and their children who live along about half a mile or so up the road from us.
on this particular afternoon, it was a Saturday, I'm almost certain, about 15 of us children were outside my Aunt Siva's house playing in her dirt yard. The sky began clouding over. The wind started picking up. Lightning flashed off in the distance. And suddenly, I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. I was terrified. I had already seen what lightning could do. I'd seen fields catch on fire after a hit to a haystack.
Lightning terrified me, and so did thunder. My mother used to gather us around her whenever we heard thunder, and she'd tell us to hush, be still now, because God was doing his work. That was what thunder was, my mother said. It was the sound of God doing his work. But my mother wasn't with us on this particular afternoon. Aunt Saniva was the only adult around, and the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger. She herded us all inside.
Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children squeezed inside. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Saniva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend, and then a corner of the house started lifting up.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky, with us inside it. That was when Aunt Saniva told us to clasp hands. Line up and hold hands, she said. And we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift.
And so it went, back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of their small bodies. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it struck me more than once over these many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house. Walking again and again by the winds, one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart.
It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed. They came together and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was weakest.
And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle and the house would still be around, would still stand, still stand. But we knew another storm would come and we would have to do it all over again, and we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I.
Children holding hands, walking with the wind. That's America to me. Not just the movement for civil rights, but the endless struggle to respond with decency, dignity, and a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood to all the challenges that face us as a nation, as a whole.
That is the story, in essence, of my life, of the path to which I've been committed since I turned from a boy to a man, and to which I remain committed today. It's the path that extends beyond the issue of race alone, and beyond class as well, and gender, and age, and every other distinction that tends to separate us as human beings rather than bring us together.
That path involves nothing less than the pursuit of the most precious and pure concept I have ever known. An ideal I discovered as a young man and that has guided me like a beacon ever since. A concept called the beloved community. Let me tell you how I came to understand that concept, how it ushered into the heart of a meaningful and monumental movement of the American century, and how it might steer us now once we deserve to go to the rest. Let me tell you about my life.
That's John Lewis, and it's all of us.
Now, Les DeBrock is going to come up and share his thoughts with you.
I grew up in East Texas, about 35 miles from where Sonny Joy grew up. Not far from the Louisiana border, a community that was very conservative and very racist. As a fundamentalist, I was taught to believe in a literal burning hell, where a person would spend eternity in fire 1,000 times hotter than any on earth if they did not get their theology just right. By the time I was 10 years old, I had accepted that the very most important thing in my entire lifespan, and in fact the only important thing, was to make absolutely sure that I did not go to hell when I died, and I was scared out of my mind. In that endeavor, I admitted that I was Baptist because I was born into a Baptist household. I realized that I could not be certain of my beliefs until I'd taken a look at the beliefs of other denominations. My first big burning questions were, did one need to be baptized to be saved? Or was baptism just a ceremony, an affirmation of it? Next one, should baptism be done by sprinkling or by full immersion? It's a big, important question. Another was one salvation experience sufficient, or could you get saved and by sinful behavior lose it and go to hell anyway? Most of us denominations thought that all the others were going to hell because they didn't get these points just right. My first years in community college were kind of tough in several ways. It was the first year that school was integrated. College, well, there was biology and evolution. Oh my goodness, you know. I'm not supposed to believe that, but it looked like it made sense. In geology, I began to suspect that the earth was more than 6,000 years old. More than any of that, that being the first year the school was integrated, there was a black student named Jimmy Woods who made a friend out of me. I'm going to have to read here. In my second year of college, I was evangelism chairman of the Baptist Student Union. Jimmy was social chairman. It was the second year of integration. I could no longer deny that Jimmy, a Negro, was smarter than I was, and he really was. He was a good, earnest, and capable colleague who had no need to ride in the back seat of my car when we went out. On one occasion, I was stunned when he was prevented from attending my church with me. Jimmy taught me something about being a good Christian that I hadn't previously known. I was left to wonder how in 18 months of community college I had learned that when, for all of my rememberable life, I had heard my deacons pray, "Lord, help me be a better Christian." Where was God's answer to that? I believed that they prayed earnestly. I was coming to understand that my church could no longer be my spiritual home. The people I'd looked up to couldn't be my mentors. Here, I'm going to plug my book for just a minute, if you don't mind. I wrote a novel, The Frog-Eyed Gospel, that portrays a young man's immersion from fundamentalism to a broader, more workable way of seeing the world. The short version is that I went from being a conservative, fundamental, self-righteous twit to being a liberal, avant-garde, self-righteous twit. For a time, I was just as deluded and fundamentalist in my liberalism as I had been before. I hadn't really changed that much. I had just changed clothes. Over a lifetime, I've learned how hard it is to fundamentally change, even when you're earnestly trying to. The racism that was bred into my bones, I'm sorry to say, still lives in the back end of my brain. It can ambush me when I least suspect it. Race is just one example of the kind of changes that people go through, that I've gone through. A moralistic self-righteousness still hangs around in my head. So what I'm saying here is that some changes are very hard, even when you wish with all your heart to change. It's much easier to fool yourself just by changing clothes. Logic is not much help. If you think it is, just try talking religion and politics with somebody. It takes emotional experiences. It wasn't logic that helped me move away from racism. It was experience with Jimmy Woods and then others that came later. Fundamental, real, deep change comes very hard.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the years, singing, singing, singing. I often think of how death stops, but life keeps going. Isn't there a line, death stopped for me? Or maybe not for me, but for someone I knew, someone I loved. Without really knowing or being able to say in words what love is. But that person's life stopped. It seemed like life stopped, but life didn't. I heard voices calling. How would I respond? Life kept going. Voices kept calling. And yet a silence, a stillness was there. Voice still and small, I hear you call. Slowly, time moved. Life kept calling. Those voices, was one of them yours? And slowly I moved. I found a way to move. And yet, that silence, that stillness is always there. I dedicate this service to those voices that call us. May we hold the stillness as we move in response. That's a singing resistance song. There's a movement called Singing Resistance. Started out of Minneapolis, and the people in it are people who like to sing, and they like to use singing to protest immigration policies of the current administration. And I'm going to teach you one of the songs that they sing. There's also a singing resistance group that's part of that movement here at Buff. And it's led by Wendy Howard. So if you're interested in that, you might want to talk to Wendy. So first it goes, we are here, and you just say, we are, you just repeat what I say. We are here, with our voices, and then together we sing this part. That our love for each other will carry us through. So we'll try the whole thing. We are here, with our voices, and all together. Our love for each other will carry us through. This time, neighbors. We are here, with our neighbors, our love for each other will carry us through. And now Henry Ohana is going to come up and share some words as a representative of the, oh, sorry. Henry Ohana is going to come up, but Henry's somebody who can speak for themselves, so I'll let him do that.
Yes. I feel you, Lynn. Right? Okay, there we go. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Back up a little bit. Hi, I'm Henry Ohana. As I sat down to, put together words and figure out what I wanted to say about change, I realized I would need a whole sermon to talk about changes in my life. There have been so many. Realizing I was a lesbian, becoming a mother, getting divorced, losing a child, etc. All of those have been transformative for me. But in an effort to pare this down, I'm going to talk about changes specific to being transgender because those are not common to many people. From the youngest age, I knew I wanted to be a boy. But what could I do? I was stuck in a girl's body. But have I dreamed of it? I did hear on a car radio once about a man who had become a woman, a tennis player. And so for a moment, there was hope. But it was eons before there was internet. I had no way to follow up on it. And besides, I could figure out enough to think about that there was something that a man could have removed that would make him more of a woman, but there wasn't anything that you could add to a girl to make her a boy. And so it was. Fortunately, I was in an environment that allowed me to realize at 16 that I was a lesbian, and that was huge. I went to my first Gay Freedom Day parade in 1978 in San Francisco, and I was elated. I had found my people. I thought maybe this is what had been wrong with me all along. So I created a family of lesbian friends, and life was good. There was a large and diverse lesbian community in the Bay Area, and I got on well. In fact, I loved living as a lesbian. And thank goodness for the women's movement, because I was able to wear clothing that felt comfortable to me. You know, the lesbian uniform, blue jeans, flannel shirts. And I went to a community college to become an auto mechanic. So I loved being part of a strong women's community and movement. And although my clothing and career choices were still bucking conventional norms, they were now possible for me in ways that hadn't been available to women or lesbians of earlier generations. So although I was uncomfortable in my body, the rest of my life was rich. But as I aged, my body became more and more problematic for me. I struggled with my body, but especially with my breasts. I dressed in jeans and large t-shirts to hide myself. The gay movement had morphed over time, becoming increasingly large and inclusive. So it went from being the gay movement to gays and lesbians to lesbians and gays, and then to LGB and LGBT, and now it is, as you know, LGBTQIA2S+. Get it right, people. Anyhow, so the trans people who had been excluded from my youth were now part of the community that I was in. And the boy who had lived inside me for so long started to become more and more insistent on taking center stage. I told my children, had I been born 40 years later, I'm sure I would have been trans. And it wasn't until my youngest son, who is also trans, said, "Why would you say would have been? Why don't you say you are?" that I really started considering it. So, out of the mouths of babes. Of course, I had all the reasons that I couldn't. I'd never pass. Everybody would still see me as a woman. I felt I would be betraying my sisterhood. And how could I leave behind all that wonderful women's and lesbian communities I'd spent a lifetime building? And maybe the hardest, although I don't know, that was hard, was how could I tell my family? Given that I was such an out lesbian, it seems funny to think that it would have been so hard for me to come out as transgender, and yet it was. So it took me 6 more years to come out. But in December of 2019, I finally did it. I stood up here to do the chalice lighting and told you all that I was transgender. The name I would go by was Henry, and my pronouns were he and him. I was so nervous, I forgot to light the chalice. And then there was that awkward in-between time. Hormones hadn't taken effect yet, no surgeries had happened. I looked the same person to everyone, but I was asking them to call me Henry and use he, him pronouns. I dreamed of having a flat chest and facial hair. Literally, I literally dreamed about this. But like with all changes, it did eventually happen, slowly. As the Calvin and Hobbes cartoonist said, it's funny how, day by day, nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different. So at this point, I never get misgendered. Although I'm exceptionally small for a man, that is what people see when they look at me. This is a mixed blessing. On one hand, my body aligns with how I feel inside. I get listened to more and feel seen by men in ways that I never had been before. On the other hand, I can no longer assume I have a benign presence. I'm seen as a potential predator. I can't approach babies or children in the ways that I once was able to without thinking about it. I realized I need to keep a certain amount of distance between me and women because otherwise my presence could feel threatening. These both make me incredibly sad. But when I look in the mirror and I see myself, I feel so right. So for people like me who transition later in life, most feel, if only I could have done this sooner. For me, I'm not so sure. I'm grateful for all the years that I lived as a woman and all that it brought me. I'm grateful to have gotten to have 4 children. I'm grateful to have been part of various women's communities. And I'm very grateful that now I can feel so much more comfortable in my body. Had I been able to transition young, what would my life have been? I'll never know. I wouldn't miss being part of a women's community because I never would have been part of one. Such is life. As with all intentional change, there will be positive parts of it, but there will also be parts that one can't anticipate that may not be so great. But it's okay. It's all part of the wheel. As it is said, nothing is constant but change. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Buff offers us resources to help us deal with changes in our lives. The pastoral care team comes to mind for one thing, and through activities like chalice circles, book groups, and dining with friends, we can have encounters with others that can spark growth and change in us. And Uplift and all the different groups that are part of SEJC are working to create positive change in our community. But of course, all of these resources can't exist without your generous support. So, as the ushers come forward and pass the basket down your aisle, please give as you are able. And now we're going to sing together hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. So please stand as you are able. All that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise for all that is the good, which we are called to do, to build a common good, and make our own days glad. For needs which shall serve, for services we give.
And now we are going to do a responsive reading, number 588 in the gray hymnals, and the words are also on the screen behind me if you'd like to follow along. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. Thank you.
We can say that there's a time for this, and a time for that, a time to laugh, a time to cry, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. But as we move through our lives, we are the ones who have to decide when that time is. How are we going to respond to the things that happen to us? No one can protect us from life. But there are resources we can draw on for guidance. We can pay attention. We can remember our values. We can listen to a voice inside us. We can be open to help from others. And together, we can work for change that we believe in. And now, I affirm that as Allie extinguishes this flame, we do not extinguish the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thanks for joining us in this service today. And now, let's circle around for freedom.